Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenni Brown, and I'm the founding partner of Brown & Dutton Law Firm in Marietta, Georgia. We practice exclusively family law litigation, and an issue that we come across so often is our client is a business owner, and they're running into the same problems over and over. And so our guests today are Don Bollmer and Nevin from B2B CFO, and I'm so excited to have both of you with us today. So what I'd like to start out with is Don, Steven, can you both take a few minutes and introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about what you specialize in and why you do what you do.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Don Bollmer. I'm a partner at B2B CFO. I've been a partner now for almost a year and a half, and I work pretty much across any industry. I have clients that range from nonprofits to HVAC to preventative imaging, and I've worked with in my career that I have worked. I've worked primarily in healthcare and nonprofits. I've been the CFO for several nonprofits here in Metro Atlanta, CFO for a large single specialty medical practice here, and just a couple other businesses that I worked in as well. I'm a B2B CFO because I like helping owners succeed in their business. I gain an edification from doing that. That they'll come out, they'll have questions, and anything that I can do to help them meet their goals, their long-term goals, that I really enjoy doing and helping them get to that point.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Don.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nevin. I, too, am a partner with B2B CFO. I've been with the firm just under 3 years. I am working with privately held business owners in a variety of different industries as their CFO. Some of these companies are in the healthcare space, logistics, technology, aviation, aerospace, and software, just to name a few. Also construction. I'm just trying to look at the list. Like Don, we're about helping business owners take their company to where they want it to go. In fact, sometimes we have to help the owner kind of figure out exactly where they want to go and how they go about getting there. All of us in the firm have been CFOs for companies large and small for at least 10 to 15 years prior to joining B2B CFO. And we're a very different firm in a number of ways that we can talk about today. But we wake up every morning excited about how we can make a difference in the lives of a business owner.
Well, and I love y'all's mission statement, the mission statement of improving the lives of business owners. Each owner is unique and important, and you improve their lives by understanding their particular goals and removing barriers that get in their way. And I love that because it's so particular to that client, right? You don't say, hey, here's a system, deploy it. You figure out their problems and start solving it. So I think that's such a unique and special approach. But let's just start really broad. What is a CFO and why do companies need one?
You want me to start? Don, why don't you start?
Ahead. You go ahead. I went first.
Okay. Well, it's a really great question, Jenny, because most business owners truly don't understand the role of the chief financial officer. Often they can confuse that title and position with a controller or even an accounting manager. So what makes a CFO different is that role is really a strategic role. It's somebody that works closely with the owner of the business, and they're looking forward. They're looking, and let me give you an example. This is a story I like to tell. So think of it this way. The business owner is the captain of the ship. He's on the bridge with a pair of binoculars looking out over the ocean, and he sees an island. And he says, CFO, I want to go to that island. And the CFO is standing right beside that CEO, looking at that island and saying, great, I'm going to tell you how to navigate to get there. And that's really what's different about a CFO than, let's say, an accounting manager or controller. Now, make no mistake about it. I mean, financial reporting is an important part of a company's data foundation and platform, but we use that data if you will, to help the company move forward successfully. So so we do have to make sure that that data is accurate, but the CFO really doesn't get into all of that bookkeeping and financial reporting. Yes, it's important that they oversee that function, but it's really looking forward to help that owner get to where they want to go.
And I think Steve stated it perfectly what we do. And part of from our experience background, I mean, we've come up through that role. We have experience where in our early careers where we've gone through that, but now we are truly in a strategic place where we're working with that business owner or working with the CEO to help them get to where we need to get.
Yeah, let me just elaborate on that point because it's an important point. So the accounting managers or controllers in the organization, perform a very important role. So let's be sure that you understand that. But think of it this way, they're more historians. They're responsible for the data today and looking back on the company's performance. We're in the position of taking that data and analyzing it to help the business owner move forward.
So how does a typical business owner come to you? What are typical problems that you see or that you hear that has led a business owner to come and seek your guidance and seek your help?
So what we find is that usually, very often, either the business owner recognizes they've got a problem, or a close advisor or friend of that owner recognizes and suggests to the owner, I think you might need some strategic advisory help. And, having been in this business for enough years, Don and I and our fellow partners here in Atlanta and across the country, we kind of like doctors, we can recognize certain symptoms of where a business owner needs help. So for example, and by the way, we go about recognizing and diagnosing what's wrong or how we can help the business through what we call a gap analysis, which is an entirely complimentary session where we go and meet with the business owner, ask questions, get some financial information to determine what their particular needs are. But there are generally, for business owners, there are three categories of need that we generally determine from that gap analysis. And they fall into these categories. One is operating, business operational issues. And we determine their need there by asking questions like, well, who do you go to advise you on your business? And how do you rate your current infrastructure with regard to your ability to scale the business? And what problems are you running into in that area? So we ask those kinds of questions, and our clients benefit from us in those areas because of our deep operating experience in a number of industries. The second category really is what we call financial. So we ask questions like, what is the state of your cash flow? And how do you measure the proper levels of capital and cash flow that you require in your business? And by the way, what does your strategic plan look like? And how did you make that determination? So in that area, we can quickly determine, if there's a need there, and we can fill in that need because of our experience in analyzing using financial information to ensure that the company is well capitalized and so forth. And then the last category is what we call transitional. And in this area, we might ask the questions and determine, what are your plans for transitioning your business? How do you value your business? Do you know how to value your business? And how did you determine that? And what do you feel are the barriers to you successfully transitioning your business and so forth? And based on those kinds of answers, we can, our clients benefit from the fact that we have specialized training as certified transition experts to assist an owner to position themselves for a transition. And we also have tools. We have patented software as well as several books designed to help the business owner successfully transition.
And just to add on to that, I'd say we also have a number of relationships with other parties throughout our specific areas that can help with that transition as well. whether it be investment bankers, private equity, any number of different types of companies out there that can help with that process.
Something that I thought was really unique about the approach that y'all take for your clients is when we've spoken before, we talked about tunnel vision, right? So if a company owner comes in and, that owner says, I have to do this. And the reason I have to do this is because I need to make more money. Tell me how you would approach that and kind of what y'all are trying to get to from that request from the business owner.
Yeah, it's a frequent situation, Jenni, where we may be approached by a business owner that says, and I'll just give one example. I'm having trouble with my bank regarding, a line of credit. And, we'll ask, well, what seems to be the problem? Well, it looks like they're not happy with my financial statements. And quite frankly, I'm not sure about our financial reporting capabilities. I'm not sure I've got the right people and the right system and so forth. And, we drill down and we ask, well, why is this all so important to you? Well, because I can't get a line of credit renewed or increased without it. And okay, well, why is that important? And then as we dig deeper and go further into the details of the business owner's needs, we may wind up with something like, well, I'm depending on my business to fund my son's college education. And I can't get to where I need to go, I believe, without doing this acquisition. And I can't do that acquisition if I don't have the adequate line of credit and so forth and so on. So we know once we've determined that what I call an emotional need, that's usually the heart of the matter. It's not about, somebody saying, well, my statements aren't right. It's really, well, why is that important to you? And how does that impact your business today and tomorrow? That's where we get to the owner's needs. And that's fundamentally, I think, different and important for our clients.
And as part of our work that we do with them, we'll go out and benchmark these specific companies against their peers, whether it be on a state level, regional, or a national level. We look at it on comparable revenue size to kind of give them an idea of how they match up. They might find out in some areas they do considerably better than their peers, but it helps us target areas specifically where they might be out of line with their peers. And then that helps us lay out the groundwork on the plan on how we'll help them in the future.
Yeah, I really like that y'all were talking about, transitioning, right? Future in the business. And it sounds to me like not only are you working with the business owners for what their current needs are, how to improve, but what are the long-term goals? You can't work forever. And what is going to happen to that business? Are you going to sell the business? Are you going to pass it on to someone else within the company? What does that look like? And that's so much more forward thinking than we usually see with financial planners, because they're usually looking at the next year, the next 6 months, the next quarter. But I really like how y'all are thinking, it might be 5 years down the road, but what is our ultimate goal? Why are we doing what we're doing?
Yes, and it's so important because, most of our clients are family-owned businesses. And most of our owners have, their future today and tomorrow wealth is tied up in their business. So most have some thought about a transition. It could be selling the business to a son or daughter. It could be maybe selling the business to the employees through an ESOP, or it could be just an outright sale where they want to maximize their enterprise value and, get a bunch of money and go buy an island. The important thing is we take the time to try to really understand the owners of what they want to do. And once we have that understanding, we build a plan to get there. And it's really sometimes, it's as simple as, starting with the end in mind, how much do you want to come away from selling your business? How much do you need? And by the way, in this conversation, this is why we bring in wealth managers, because they handle the personal side of that financial planning while we, of course, stay focused on the business side, but we start with the fundamentals and really work with the owners to understand, okay, so I understand you want $15 million. So let's devise a plan based on your past financial performance and based on some strategic decisions of how we can get there. And that's part of the financial planning. And then we execute with the owner. Don, I know you've got some stories on that.
Oh, yeah. One of my clients right now is going through a sale on the business, and they didn't have a defined plan on how they were going to pass the plan along. The owner, the late owner of the company, had some ideas. He had talked to a number of people about it, had actually laid out some ideas on paper with his attorney, but never really had formalized and executed it. And he passed away in June of 19. We're 2 years, almost 2 years now since he's passed, and the business is still sold. It's doing very well, continues to do so, but the family doesn't want to continue to run the business. They want to sell the business. It would have been a considerably easier transaction for them, probably would have resulted in them attaining more of their targets had they sat down and laid out a plan prior to his passing. Unfortunately for him, he was sick for a number of years and didn't have the capacity to sit down and formalize that plan in the last 3 to 4 years of his life. And so from my perspective, it's crucial that if you're a business owner, that you sit down with your attorney, you sit down with your advisors, and you lay this plan out and you put that plan into writing. It can always be changed down the road if it doesn't necessarily look out that way. If your children decide that they don't want to take over the family business, which is not unusual, that you have a plan that you have set out so that you can attain the goals that you want to. And I think it's just it is very important that you sit down and detail those plans out and don't wait to the last minute, because if you do, then you really lose control over the process.
And by the way, Jenni, when we determine that a business owner's number one priority is positioning for a successful transition, we also bring to bear advisors like you folks on estate planning and other areas where we know we have to bring those specialists in to make sure that that side of their house is properly established, and for a host of reasons. And so there are a lot of advisory services that we bring to bear in what we call the success team. And we kind of act like the quarterback in that process between the owner and these very professional advisors.
Yeah, and so often, people always think of, or we hope that they think of estate planning, right? What's going to happen when I die? What's going to, how are my family going to manage without me? But sometimes they forget that the main source of income is their company. So just how you need to plan for that, you've got to plan for the company as well. But Don, something you said earlier reminded me of a common occurrence that we see. So, we obviously are representing people in a divorce. And so say a party comes in and they've been running this company together for years, and their family is splitting up. And they're doing, a few $1 million a year, but that's all they have. They've put everything they have into the company. They've cashed out their prior retirement plans, and we're trying to navigate a plan for one party to take the business, the other party to be paid out. And what we would typically do is get the business appraised, and then the business owner then has to take that appraisal and figure out, okay, now is this going to work, right? Do I have a financial plan to allow this to get past this situation? Is that something that y'all could help with at that time, integrating that plan into their future, into how that's going to look for their business?
Absolutely. And it's working with that business owner to develop a plan for moving forward, and knowing that when they finalize that transaction, it's finding out what's the best way that they can take care of that. Whether the person, when that acquisition from one party from the other, if they want all the money up front, well, then there's a number of things that they can consider to do at that point in time. It might best behoove the other party that payment stream is stretched out over a number of years so that they have ongoing income. And you can take a look at any number of different ways doing that, whether it's the one party finances the other, or having something more through a bank and setting it up that way. I think there's any number of ways that we can do. And we bring in other financial advisors as well who can help us address that to what it's best for the both the company and the party that's exiting.
How much work do y'all do with taxes and companies that are maybe dealing with a tax issue or just taking advantage of, I know y'all aren't CPAs, but do you work hand in hand with accountants?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, accounting, like legal, is a very often referred requirement for our client base. So absolutely. So the area of taxes is one that we navigate kind of cautiously. We are not tax advisors, but as CFOs, we have enough experience where we can often recognize fairly quickly risks or issues that require to be dealt with, if you will. So, we bring in CPA firms all the time. We bring in tax advisors all the time. I had one client that had an outstanding settlement with the IRS, and I did bring in an attorney that specializes in negotiating with the IRS. So, I mean, when we get approached by tax issues with our clients, which happen often, we probably can determine the severity and the level of the issue. Sometimes we do need to bring in a tax advisor. Other times it's just not that complex. We've seen it before, and we probably have a pretty good solution for that right up front.
And what about just general debt management? So part of their financial plan might be, okay, I have that. My goal is in the next 5 years, I want to get out of this debt and be debt-free, operating my business without, this burden. Is that something that you typically see or that you work with clients with?
Yes. Go ahead,
yes.
Don.
No, and for them, it's setting it up to where we take a look at their current debt structure, and then we'll come back to them. And I'll work with them. Are there other opportunities? Is there someone else out there that they could possibly get them to refinance the debt through at terms that are better for them and better for their business? That's something that we'll take a look at. Is it just working with them to say, okay, we see that's part of it. When we do we'll help them financial plan out so that they can take care of that debt over a specific period of time so that they're debt free based upon their target. It's a sitting and working with them and asking them the questions of where they want to be and what their comfort level is to do what they want to do with their specific comfort levels.
So I'll give you a story on that, Jenni. I have a construction client that a year ago was really in serious difficulty, where they had drawn down a number of what we call these merchant credit association lenders, folks like Cabbage and these online lenders that, as are, charge rates of 25%, and, you pay weekly and so forth. We like to call it cocaine debt, if you will.
Yes.
And they were really spiraling in. In fact, at one point we were discussing bankruptcy, and I sat down with the owner and we said, what we're going to do is go back to these folks and we're going to try to negotiate terms where we can work our way out of this. And a year later, we in fact were able to work our way out and pay off these merchant credit association lenders. Of course, he's never going back to that. But the point is that we do help business owners not only in a positive way moving forward to make sure they get the most optimal capital in the best form, but when they're in trouble, we help the owner by standing there, talking with the vendor or with the lender and saying, look, on behalf of my client, we need to talk about some forbearance. We need to talk about some relief that makes sense both for you and for my client. So let's talk about how we can work this out. And that's one of the other areas that we do for our client if they're in trouble in that area.
Yep. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Don't take that instant money, right?
It is. And, and by the way, a number of business owners have gotten into difficulty from those kinds of financing. So when we see that, that's kind of an alarm bell right away. And we start to talk to see how we can kind of work our way out of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we see that too, which is completely understandable, especially if you have people depending on you for your livelihood and you're looking at your accounts and thinking, how am I going to make this work? And then there's this option that you can grab and then you're stuck. So I love that you have seen that and that you know a way and that there is a path out for that business owner.
Yeah, it's the point is we help owners in good times as well as difficult times, because most of us in the firm have actually been involved in major restructurings of companies. And, I'd like to say there's an art to that. So, for example, I went into one client a year ago and they were really having significant cash flow difficulties. They were basically underwater. They didn't even know how much. So we first determined how much they were bleeding. And then we put together a plan, first of all, to stop the bleeding. What we determined was that their entire personnel payroll structure was out of whack. Unfortunately, they were paying employees way beyond the market level that candidly they should have been paying. And there's an art to, if you will, downsizing the business and at the same time making sure you keep key players in the organization. And we've had quite a bit of experience in that. So when companies get into trouble, we can, they can benefit from our experience and us working with them to accomplish that, reduction in expenditure and at the same time keep the organization moving forward.
So just a few more questions that I have. Earlier you mentioned the gap analysis, that initial meeting with a business owner that they come in and, whatever their issue may be. Can you tell me a little bit more of what that is and what a business owner would expect to be asked or expect to bring? What does that look like for them?
Don, you want to field that one?
Sure. From the gap analysis standpoint, we will spend anywhere from about 10 to 20 hours putting this together. We'll meet with the business owner and we'll ask them a number of questions, specifically more like, what challenges are you facing currently? We'll start from the general, what challenges are you facing? Where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? What are your long-term targets and goals? And then start delving in a little bit deeper there to ask more questions, to kind of come to identify some of the specific areas where they feel the challenges are. Then we'll meet with their staff for about 2 to 4 hours and go through a similar process with them, take a look at the different things that they're doing, what challenges that they see. We'll typically get anywhere from 2 to 4 years worth of financial information, whether it be their tax forms, tax filings, or their financials. We'll work with software that we have that allows us to benchmark where they are against their peers in the industry based on revenue, state, regional, national. And from that, we will come up, identify areas, gaps from what their current situation is to where they want to be. And we'll develop a plan on how to shrink those gaps so we can get to what we call our desired situation. It's where the business owner wants to get. And then we'll come back and to the business owner and we'll present that to them and kind of lay out the plan with a specific time period over that within X number of months or in X years, something along those lines, this is what we plan to do and how we plan to get there.
Well, I really like that you're approaching both areas, right? It could be a personnel issue, like you said earlier, the employees, their payroll, maybe it's just the wrong person in a role, or a wholly, financial issue or a mix of the two. And it sounds like y'all have the experience to deal with any of those problems.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the ways our clients benefit from our engagement is that we're not just limited to what's between the ears of the individual partner. There's almost 200 of us with 6,000 years combined of business experience. So it's unlikely we're going to run into an issue that some of our partners have not already encountered and pretty well know the answer. I want to just go back to remind you that gap analysis is completely complementary. We don't charge our clients or prospects for that. Our job is to get alignment to really understand and confirm that we heard correctly what the owner's needs are, and that the plan, a strategy plan, and that's what the document is that we deliver. The strategy plan that we've delivered is in alignment with meeting their needs. And when we do that correctly, most often our clients do want to engage us.
Well, and that's, I think, something important, because you also are probably wanting to make sure that the business owner is on board, right? You can only help them unless they're willing to, so much as they're willing to participate. And, that includes some hard decisions sometimes for the business owner. So I think that's important in doing that gap analysis to say, look, if this is what you want to do, we can get you there, but you have to want to go there.
Yeah. That's right. And by the way, we also, if the spouse is involved in the business, which is more often the case than not, one way, shape, or form, we'll do a separate interview with him or her, so that we get all sides of those needs. And quite often we hear a bit of a different story from the spouse than we do from we'll have the CEO talking numbers, and often we'll have the spouse saying, well, that's all cool, but we need to cash out of this business in 3 years.
Yes.
And, things like that.
Yeah.
Yep. So one's going to grow it and the other's out the door. So you're like, guys, we got to get on the same page here if we're going to do either.
Exactly.
Well, thank y'all so much for your time today. One thing I wanted to mention and talk about before we're done is the exit strategy, y'all's book that's available, and it has such good information and good content. They can either go to y'all's website or you can buy this online. But I wanted to also ask you, what is the best way for someone to get in contact with either one of you?
Well, you can go to our B2B CFO website and actually go to where our professionals are. And here in Georgia, Don and I are part of the Georgia region, and there's, I think we're up to 10 partners, Don, and you can get our contact information there. But if it's all right, we can each give you our email address. I'm Steve Nevin, STEVENEVIN @b2bcfo.com. And that's spelled the letter B, the number 2, letter B, CFO.com. And Don?
And mine's Don Bollmer, BOLLMER @b2bcfo.com.
Well, thank you both so much. And I'll share that information on the bottom of the video so people can easily grab it and contact you. And I really appreciate your time. Y'all are doing such good, valuable service for these business owners. So I'm so thankful that y'all took your time out today to give us some information on what they could expect with B2B.
Well, Jenny, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And you have a great week.
You too.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.